What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy Julien Stoutt, licensed personal trainer, licensed PE teacher, world record powerlifter, special education teacher, here to take the fear out of fitness. We are about to take off and class is in session. Guys, my apologies. I was ready to go. We had some technical difficulties. Sorry for the late start. Legitimately, we just had some crazy stuff go on where my whole entire channel disconnected from my streaming platform and completely went haywire and took me off of everything and asking me for streaming keys, for those of y'all who know the technical ins and outs of what we do here. However, I'm here now and I'm ready to go. So with that being said, welcome to the show. As I said before, my name is Julien Stoutt. I am an elite personal trainer. I not only am an elite personal trainer, but I'm also a world record powerlifter and a licensed PE teacher. So with that being said, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing, and I know exactly how to get the results that you're looking for. But the conversation at hand is about something I like to call the variables of Cain. And the variables of Cain is consumption, appetite, nutrition, and expenditure. And, you know, the reason why this came up is, ironically, I was having a conversation with both my wife and my sister. And in that conversation, my sister brought up her use of intermittent fasting. And I have to tell you, I don't have any particular issues with intermittent fasting. You've seen me discuss the results of intermittent fasting on other streams that I've done or other videos I've done. And I have nothing against it personally, except for one particular thing. And that particular thing is, how viable is it for you, the person, to do? And in the discussion that I had with my sister, she was letting me know that it works for her and she wants to go forward with it. And I had to interject on a personal level, and I'm not going to go into the specifics, but I'm going to interject on the question that I asked. And the question that I asked is, does it work for you because you're busy, or does it work for you because you're disciplined? Right? And I'm not going to give her answer, but I'm going to give you both ends of the spectrum. I'm going to give you that question. Are you doing it? Are you capable of handling intermittent fasting because you're busy, or are you disciplined? Busy meaning you work so hard, you push yourself, you've got so many things on your agenda that you genuinely don't have time to eat during the day when you're at work. You might be able to grab a couple of things here and there, but if you really are doing the work, you really won't have time until you actually reach your fasting window, which could anywhere between 12, 8, or 6 hours long. And if that's the case, if you're so busy that you cannot meet that the only time you can eat is within that window, then of course it's going to work for you because you're at work. But what happens on the days you're not at work? What happens on the weekends? What happens on vacation? What happens on business trips? What happens on occasions where you have to step away, but you're not enthralled in the throes of your business, or enthralled in throes of your profession? Well, what happens is you backslide. You then start to mindlessly eat because you're not busy anymore, and your idle hands are the food devil's playground, right? You're just gonna grab stuff, and it doesn't. And when we get into appetite, I want you to clearly understand what I mean by what appetite actually is and what it is not, right? So the next part is, are you disciplined? If you are disciplined, then intermittent fasting is perfect for you. Okay? And if intermittent fasting is actually perfect for you, then there's nothing to talk about. You have the ability to eat within your window. You're more than likely not going to expand past that window, and you're going to see success long term, right? But even when you are disciplined, when you decide to step away from intermittent fasting, because that is not going to be a lifestyle choice, it's going to be a choice in the position of change. Are you going to be able to maintain your newfound change, your newfound weight, your newfound success? Answer may be no. Not saying it is, but the answer may be no. And for those of y'all who disagree with me, feel free to get in the chat and let me know what you think, or comment below and let me know exactly what it is you think, because this is what I think, right? So with the wife, the conversation is knowing your appetite. You have to do things a certain way in order to be successful. Once you understand fully what appetite in the variables of Cain is, what it truly is, then and only then will you be able to determine what you need to do. Well, we will determine what you need to do in order for you to be successful. Okay? So, moving into, go to appetite. Appetite is one of the most overlooked components. It is recognized but highly misconstrued. This is where most assumptions are made about the body composition of people who are overweight or obese. Again, it plays a role, but it is a factor of determining how one should calories as approach to judging how one is healthy or not. How often you eat is not the issue per se, but it only becomes an issue if you overindulge in consumption while lacking nutrition and expenditure. So, appetite is basically the amount of times a person needs to eat in order to satiate themselves in a 24-hour period. End of story. Now, that is not the textbook definition of a of appetite. If you want that, I'll be more than happy to give it to you. Right? So let's look up the word appetite. So, appetite is the natural desire to satisfy a bodily need, especially for food. Right? That's it. That's pretty much it, but that's exactly what I pretty much said, but in a different way. And I specifically said it the way that I said it because this will put you in a more strategic mindset in order to fix what needs to be fixed in your diet, right? The amount of times you need to eat in a 24-hour period is your appetite. How often are you getting hungry after reaching after reaching the level of satisfaction. Now, satisfaction doesn't necessarily mean full, right? Satisfaction doesn't necessarily mean full. The biggest mistake that people make is that when they say, I'm full, they assume fullness with satisfaction. Completely off the rails. That is not true. You have more than likely overeaten if you feel full, bloated, stressed in the abdomen. These are all things that will definitely tell you you have overeaten. Now, satisfaction is when you are no longer feeling hunger, when your blood sugar isn't crashing, where you don't feel dizzy, nauseous, irritable. These are all the variables that you look at in order to determine whether or not you are satisfied. Satisfaction doesn't mean your stomach has to look like you're sick, like you're 30 weeks pregnant. You don't have to look like that. You don't have to reach that. You don't have to eat an abundance of food. Yes, I understand the industry creates foods that make you want to eat more of it, therefore creating potential food addictions. But in all honesty, you don't even have to reach that level and still be successful. Now, let me give you an example of two versions of an appetite. You have the person that hardly eats. To get them to eat breakfast is a fight, right? However, they will eat breakfast. They're willing to eat it, but it's hard for them, right? So let's say they eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They don't even snack in between. Is that good or bad? It's neither, depending on what your goals are. If you're trying to gain weight, absolutely horrible, right? If you're trying to build muscle, it's absolutely horrible. But if you are trying to just live a life, it's not necessarily good or bad, all right? But in those 3 meals, you must maintain the balance of your baseline metabolism plus what is required of you to meet the demands of your day, right? So that includes your TEE, your total energy. Basically, that'll be your total energy expenditure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my presentation real quick to show you what I'm talking about. So expenditure, your TDEE, which is your total daily energy expenditure, is the total amount of energy given away on a daily basis. All of it. Whether you rode a bike, you ran, you jumped, you threw footballs, you tackled people, you dunked, whatever it is that you did, it doesn't matter. You need this to function on a day-to-day basis. Now, your TDEE is mixed with your baseline metabolic rate, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is your basic moving around and doing things that is non-exercise induced. And then you have your EAT, which is your exercise in activity thermogenesis, which is where exercise comes in. And those things combined makes your total daily energy expenditure. So once you know what your TDEE is, which is on average anywhere between, for some people, depending on your level of activity, could be anywhere between 1,400 to as high as 2,000 calories. Very rare, unless you are a professional or high-level athlete, will you exceed 2,000 calories a day. In my high level of training, I was reaching levels of 2,900 calories a day just to function, not pass out while I was lifting, right? And I'm only 5'4" and 154 pounds at the moment. And on most days, when I was trying to lose weight, I was maybe reaching as high as 3,400 calories a day. And once I lost the weight that I needed to and got down to about 145 to 148 to reach the competition level is where things were. Now, again, that's almost 2 times the amount of the average. If it's 2 or 2.5 times the average of what a person will need to function on a day-to-day basis with moderate levels of physical fitness activity. So with that being said, enough of the jargon mumbo jumbo. If you have an appetite of 3 meals a day, then you have some wiggle room to play with your decisions on what you can eat on a day-to-day basis, whether it's clean or not, right? However, the bigger your appetite, the less room you have for high-density calorie foods, which means going for the burgers, going for the chips, going for the candy bars, going for the tacos, and I'm talking about tacos in high numeration, right? We are talking about pizzas in the multiples of slices. We're talking about desserts on multiples. These sodas and energy drinks on repeat. These are the things that will get you in trouble when you have a high appetite, which means you are eating 2.5 hours per day. When you have an appetite where you need to eat 2.5 hours a day, or else your blood sugar is going to crash and you're going to become desperate, then that's where you're going to find yourself in bigger trouble than not. This is where your A1C levels are going to spike ridiculously because you have to go for high glycemic foods in order to satisfy the need of your blood sugar cravings. Your blood sugar cravings don't happen simply because you're gluttonous. It doesn't happen for that reason. It happens because your blood sugar crashed because your metabolism is actually high. One of the biggest myths that people tend to have about metabolism is that they have a slow metabolism. That's not true. It's not that you have a slow metabolism. You have a high anabolic metabolism, which I like to call your ham. You have a ham metabolism, high anabolic metabolism. Whereas, for the most part, some people have high catabolic metabolisms. They lose weight easily. When you understand the difference between those two things, then and only then will you be able to determine what you can and cannot get away with when it comes to your eating habits. High anabolic metabolisms cannot afford to eat junk food. High anabolic metabolisms cannot afford to eat candy, drink soda, eat pizza in high slices. You cannot have hamburgers, fries, and a Coke. You cannot do it. You cannot have fries, hamburger, and Coke with a high anabolic metabolism. A high anabolic metabolism is not necessarily a salad either. I'm not going to insult you with that. A high anabolic metabolism is something to the effect of some chicken breast, some rice, some broccoli, some form of a vegetable. If you need to be satisfied, a fruit. Shout out to the people who are watching right now. Go ahead and give me a like and, give me a shout out in the chat. I would appreciate it. I would like to engage with you guys if possible. The deal is, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I also have to answer questions later that popped up on Facebook and Instagram. I'm more than happy to answer those. So we'll get to those in a minute. But when we're dealing with appetites, if you have a high anabolic metabolism, but a low appetite, you can get away with a few little ticks here and there, but you cannot go ham on the junk. You don't necessarily have to eat clean, but you can't eat dirty. People with high anabolic metabolisms and a high appetite, you cannot. And I mean absolutely cannot eat dirty. Every last one of your meals will be 300 to 400 calories, period. And you must meet the percentages of your carbs, fats, proteins, your macros, if you will, and meet the demands of your micronutrients as well. So you have no room for error in acquiring what it is that your body needs to function. Now, on the other side, if you have a high catabolic metabolism, but you have a low appetite, this is what this is who junk food was made for. Most of y'all don't realize your cold cereals were made in design to deal with children who suffer from malnutrition. They needed the sugar, they needed the carbs in order, and the vitamins that were fortified in it to be able to survive a day in the life of a child that lived during the Great Depression. All right? That's what we're dealing with when we look at specifically the high catabolic, low appetite person. You're the person that can eat cold cereal, eat waffles and pancakes with butter and syrup. You're that person who can get away with having fried chicken, eating a hamburger with fries and a Coke. You're that person. High catabolic metabolisms with a low appetite. You're that person. Okay? I was that person. Now that I've gotten a little bit older and my activity levels have slowed a bit, I am a high catabolic, mid appetite person. But I'll even say high appetite means if you're high catabolic, high appetite, then all of you is about high density caloric foods in conjunction with good macronutrients involved in play. So that means your first meal, pancake syrup with butter, orange juice, maybe some coffee with some sugar and cream in it. That might be your breakfast. But then you are going to have a snack of an orange and an apple, right? Then for lunch, your lunch is going to consist of one piece of fried chicken, one piece of grilled chicken, French fries. Yes, I said French fries if you have a high catabolic, high appetite. That's what I said. And then you will maybe make yourself a lemonade with fresh squeezed lemons, as opposed to, store-bought lemonade that is filled with nothing but high fructose corn syrup. By the way, your lemonade is made with honey, not sugar. Even though, yes, honey is a sugar, but honey is a natural sugar as opposed to high fructose corn syrup lemonade, as opposed to sucrose lemonade. This is where these adjustments I would make personally with you to give you both the good and the bad of it to maintain your weight, because you're that person that if you mess up and forget a meal, you're losing 10 pounds. You're that person where everybody's afraid that you are anorexic. Everybody's afraid that you're starving yourself for some ill-begotten gains, when that's clearly not the truth. You're that type of person that if you miss a meal because you're too busy, you lose 5 pounds in a matter of a couple of days, right? Then for dinner, you could have, and this is assuming your budget is legit, this is where you go ahead and have you have a steak, you have some rice, you might have that salad, and then you wash it all down with some seltzer water. And oh, by the way, your snack, my bad, your pre-dinner snack is, your pre-dinner snack could be, let's say, a bagel with some butter on it. A bagel, not 2 bagels, but a bagel with some butter on it. But then your dinner is a piece of steak, no bigger than a deck of cards. I may say a little bit bigger than a deck of cards, maybe the size of your hand, depending on your height. Then, like I said, some jasmine rice with a fresh cut salad with either seltzer water or regular water, whichever one you prefer. This specifically is for the high catabolic, high appetite individual. So you have four quadrants: high anabolic metabolism, high catabolic metabolism, high appetite, low appetite. When you meet wherever you meet in that quadrant, that is what I use to determine what my meal planning for you will be, to see success based on your individual goal. So let's say you're the high catabolic metabolism with a high appetite, but you don't want to gain weight, but you're tired of losing weight. So you want to gain some weight back. You want to gain that weight that you lost back. But once you have achieved the weight that you've gained, you don't want to gain any more. Then what I described to you earlier is what I would do with the tweak of obviously throwing in a little bit more junk food until you reach the weight goal. And then that whole entire meal plan that I gave you just a few seconds ago is what will meet your demands on a daily basis without going over, and whereas you're not inundating yourself with unhealthy macronutrients consistently. Yeah, you might get a little spike in sugar. Yeah, you might have a little bit of more fats, but guess what? Your metabolism is so high, it doesn't matter. You're going to burn through it. Whereas you're the high anabolic metabolism person and the high appetite person, let me break it down for you what I would do, variably speaking, depending on your activity level. Wake up, bowl of oatmeal, drizzle of honey, maybe a half a banana in slices, and a glass of water with a cup of coffee black, if you can tolerate that. Right? That's meal number 1. And maybe 2 strips of bacon. Yeah, 2 strips of bacon. Obviously, hopefully it's with low in nitrates or no nitrates at all. I would do that. Then for your snack, 2 apples or 1 banana and an apple, or a can of pineapples, or half a can of pineapples. Yeah, I'll actually go half a can of pineapples. Then for your lunch will consist of a chicken breast with a half a cup of rice, with a full cup of broccoli with seltzer water with a squeeze of lemon juice in it. Snack the other half of that can of pineapples. Then for dinner, you could have any protein you want, a sweet potato. So let's say ground beef, sweet potato, and we already had broccoli for today. I don't want to inundate you and bore you to death with more broccoli, but let's say a couscous salad, right? A couscous salad with another glass of water, maybe even 2 glasses of water. That's your meal plan for the day. That would be, like I said, for the high anabolic, high appetite person. I gave you 5 meals, and if you really need a 6th one, a 1/4 cup of oatmeal before you go to sleep. That's what I would recommend. No, correction. Your final meal will be your protein shake with almond milk, protein shake, nothing else. That would be your 6th meal before you go to sleep. And that's it. You're done. Because if you eat any more, you're going to gain weight easily. It's too easy. So your appetite is not, oh, you can't stop shoveling food in your face. That's not true. Everyone has a level of control. It is whether or not you have an addiction or not. And yes, if you have an addiction, then you're out of control and you need to curb your addiction, no different than any addict, right? But what I'm talking about is I'm talking to people who are merely obese but have a high appetite. I'm not talking to people who have a food addiction and is obese, because that's a whole nother thing. Those are those people who need to go into a treatment center like they're an addict and then manage their emotions and figure out what the catalyst is for their situation. This also includes people who have drug-induced obesity. Okay? Your drug-induced obesity, so you have caloric-induced obesity, you have addiction-induced obesity, and then you have drug-induced obesity. And when I say drug-induced obesity, I'm not telling you, oh, if you do illicit and explicit drugs, that you will become obese. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that if you're on some form of medication due to an illness that you have, if you're on medication due to a medication because you have gastrointestinal issues, and that medication bloats you, makes you retain water and gain weight, right? That is not the same as caloric induced obesity. It's not because you're inundating yourself with too many calories and cannot function. What is happening is that the chemicals that you're inducing in your body to deal with one particular problem is creating an atmosphere that is causing you to gain weight because your metabolism has either slowed, therefore making you a high anabolic metabolic person, or it is causing you to your blood sugars to do the wave and therefore creating a craving that causes you to create a caloric induced obesity state, right? So with that being said, appetite is not, oh, you can't stop eating. That is not what an appetite is. Oh, you got to keep shoveling food in your face. Oh, I got to lock the fridge or put alarms on the cabinets because you can't stop eating. No, that's not true at all. The truth is, your appetite is how much food you consume or how many times you need to eat in a 24-hour basis to remain satiated. So if I gave you that meal plan, and you cannot remain satisfied because 2.5 hours is too slow, then I would simply tell you to drink water in between those 2.5 hours. So every 1.6 hours, which would be hour and 10 minutes, hour and 15 minutes. So every hour and 15, so hour and 15 minutes in between meals, you drink water, a crap ton of water. So that way you can remain satiated from point A to point B, because that food is not fully digested in your stomach yet. It has not passed through your entire digestive system yet. It's moving faster than the average, but it is not passed through your system all through yet. So yes, at hour and 15 minutes after you have taken your last bite of food, you should be drinking at least 1.5 quart of water. Yes, I said it, 1.5 quart, because now you're going to be full for another hour. You might not even been hungry. You might have been thirsty. Then an hour and 15 minutes after you took your last drink of water, you should then be beginning the process of eating again. Beginning the process. That means the plate should be right in front of you. No excuses. Your food needs to be on your plate in front of you 1 hour and 15 minutes after you have taken your last drink of water 1 hour and 15 minutes earlier. Then 1 hour and 15 minutes after you have taken your last bite of food, you should be drinking your next 1.5 quart. Your 1.5 quarts. So that would be 1 quart and a pint of water. So that should be roughly 24 ounces of water. No, a quart is 32 ounces, excuse me. So yeah, I'm right. 32 ounces is a quart. So you should be drinking 1 quart and 1 pint. So that's 40 ounces of water. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at stouttfitness@gmail.com. So I'm going to put it up on here so you guys can see it. So, show it here on the screen real fast. My bad. So, if you can see that, stoutfitness@gmail.com. Okay? I need you to either email me, hit me up in the chat below, or hit me up in the comments below, or converse with me on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok all are Stoutt Fitness. Facebook is Stoutt Space Fitness. Instagram is Stoutt Fitness, all one word. TikTok is Stoutt Space Fitness. If you want to send me a DM, feel free to send me a DM. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Those of you who are my clients or former clients, feel free to text message me. You have my number. I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions at that time, because it is highly important that you guys get this information. I need you to understand that I understand. It's not about, stop eating crap, stop eating crap. It's not that. What it is that you need to know who you are in the metabolic game. Once you know who you are in the metabolic game, then and only then, you can decide for yourself whether or not is this junk food, or is this clean food, or is this in between right for you. If there's any vices you have specifically that you really can't let go, then yes, I am more than happy to work with you on how you can, whether it's overcome that vice or how you manage that vice. I'm more than willing to work with you if in fact that's what you're going to do. Okay? I need you guys to understand this. So your appetite is not shoveling food in your face until your belly explodes. Your appetite is how often you need to eat in order to be satisfied, or meaning to have a level blood sugar level, an even blood sugar level, which is anywhere between 95 and 120. If your blood sugar is between 95 and 120 on a consistent basis, that is satisfaction on a metabolic level. The minute you drop below that, no longer satisfied, you're going to get hungry and you're going to want to tear the roof off when it comes to food, till your blood sugar gets back to what you perceive as normal. For diabetics, your blood sugar is not going to feel normal at 100. Your blood sugar is not going to feel normal at 110. Your blood sugar is not even going to feel normal at 120. For most of you, if you're a diabetic, your blood sugar is going to feel normal at 140. However, as you start shedding the body fat and your muscles become more sensitive to sugar, you are not going to need to be at those levels to feel normal. Because when you eat, your blood sugar shoots up to God knows how high, 180, 200, 265. And then when your insulin finally pushes through the body fat, your blood sugar crashes like the Hindenburg. Now you're looking at a low of 60, 70. And now you want to peel the the can of whatever it is with your bare hands. You won't even need a can opener. You will peel that bad boy open to get to the food that's inside of it. Because your body's that desperate for sugar. Not in an addiction way, but because your blood sugar's low. You're desperate. Okay? So I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from with appetite and how you can manage this, how you can eat. What does eating look like at a high anabolic metabolism or a high catabolic metabolism, a low appetite or a high appetite, and the combinations thereof. I hope you guys understand. If you don't understand after listening to this, feel free to contact me. Like I said, Stoutt Fitness, STOUTT Fitness @gmail.com, or hit me up at my website, Stoutt Fitness, www.stouttfitness.com. Hit me, click on the chat button. You will send me a message. I will get it, and I will converse with you from there. You will have to give me some contact information in order to connect with me, so that way I know you're real and not a bot, and I will discuss what it is that we need to discuss to get you on the plan that you need to get on to get where you need to go. So either email me at stouttfitness@gmail.com or hit me up at stouttfitness.com itself. Show you what the website looks like. Let's go back to Google. So let's show you what that looks like. So if you guys want to see what the website looks like, so that way you know where you're at, this is what the website looks like. When you do, you click on the Let's Chat button, and when you click on that Let's Chat button, what it'll do for you is, all you got to do is plug in your stuff, leave your details so I can contact you. Even if you're no longer on the site, I can just contact you and hit you up and let you know how I can help you. All right? It's important. It's real important that you guys understand these things, because I genuinely do want you to be successful in your fitness journeys. I don't necessarily have to be with you every single step of the way, but once I have educated you properly, once you are on the plane that I know you can be on, I have no doubt in my mind your level of success will be achieved. All right? So yes, that's the website, www.stouttfitness.com. Now, on to your questions. So Riley asked me, is it bad for a child's health or growth when they work out or when they are really young? So I asked, how young is young? And they said anywhere between the ages of 5 to 10. Now, working out for a 5-year-old is different from working out as a 10-year-old, which may be different from working out as an 14 and 17-year-old child, right? As a 5-year-old, if I want a 5-year-old to work out, I will not introduce them to weights. I would introduce them to activities that will cause them to do more calisthenics, to do more body weight work. As a 5-year-old, it'll be more about body weight. It won't be about lifting weights. 7, I might introduce them to speed and agility and quickness, things of that nature. But at 10 is where I will really start to begin to introduce the weight training aspect of things, because it's not going to mess with their growth plates. That's a myth. It's not going to mess with your growth plates. As a matter of fact, it'll actually probably increase your metabolism as opposed to slowing it down and pushing. I'm not going to give you extremely heavy weights, obviously, and even if you could physically handle it, I'm not going to give you extremely heavy weights. Anywhere between 10 to 15 pounds should be sufficient enough to train a 10-year-old. Unless your 10-year-old is Brock Lesnar, okay? Which is a genetic freak. But a 10-year-old, anywhere between 5 to 15 pounds should be more than sufficient enough to train a 5 to 10 to train a 10-year-old. All right? Now, once we get past all of that, then the real work begins. Hopefully, you've been training consistently and now your weights will be being increased because of the imposed demands that we need to have on your body to achieve a new level of fitness. Cardio will always be involved because cardiovascular development in children should always be encouraged as opposed to trying to shy away from it. If you're doing something like boxing, mixed martial arts, you shouldn't be doing any kind of weightlifting that young in a boxing or mixed martial arts camp, not that early. If you're a child in a mixed martial arts, like I said, anywhere between 5 and 10, it should be all body weight work. All body weight work, maybe, holding a medicine ball in a static position, whether it be above your head or in front of you or close to your body, but particularly like lifting weights, 5 to 7 years old, I definitely wouldn't be introducing weights, but exercise is always welcome for all children of all ages, and I mean all ages, even down to babies. They should be exercising. How do you exercise a baby, Julien? Oh my God, are you serious? Yes, I am very serious. You exercise your baby. You turn around, you play with their legs, you push their legs into their chest, and then you let them push you away a little bit. Like, obviously with their level of strength, not yours. You let them push off, you push them back, you let them push off, like kind of like you're their own personal leg press machine, right? Grab them by their fingers, meaning they have your fingers, and you support them a little bit, and then you hold them up, let them hang there, let them experience what their body weight feels like. Let them pull. You're not yanking on your kid. You're not swinging them around by their arms, because then you can separate their shoulders, right? But what I'm saying is you're giving them a little bit of, tension and letting them experience pulling. If they can't hold themselves up while, by their arms, then you just pull them up slightly off the bed and let them do, chest pulls like you are on a bench. So for those of y'all who are in the gym, you get on a Smith machine, you grab onto the bar, and then you do high rows on a incline bar. You could do that with your child, with your baby. You could do that with them. And then as they get bigger and stronger and older, then yes, now you get into the dad territory of wrestling with your kids. That is a form of physical workouts with your child. They're your toddler. They're 8 and 9 months old, 10 months old, a year old, year and a half, 2 years old. That's where I would recommend your children should be active all of their life. There should never be a time that they're just a baby. Nope. Work them physically so that their brains will begin to start working. You might even get them to start walking early. I started walking at 9 months old. As a matter of fact, Christmas is the day I walked, according to my mom. I wouldn't know. I wasn't that conscious at 9 months old. Okay? But the deal is at no stage in a child's life should exercise be withdrawn or avoided? Exercise is highly encouraged at every age, period. The difference is what are you doing with that child at those different stages and levels? Can a child at 5 years old do basketball drills or do wind sprints as fast as they can? Yes, absolutely, 100%. I have no qualms about any parent putting their child through their paces to whatever sport they're leaning towards. So if they want to play football, then yes, I want them to have physical capabilities of pushing themselves off the ground and being able to run fast and being able to change directions and catching a football and throwing a football. All of those things are just fine if they play football. If they play basketball, shooting the basketball into the hoop, practicing dribbling drills, all of those things are more than appropriate for a 5-year-old to do if they are physically capable of doing it. But weight training, I would start introducing actual full-on weight training at the age of 9 or 10. Personally. Okay? Guys, that's my time. I appreciate you guys. This is, again, terribly sorry for the hiccups this earlier today because my system literally just crashed. It disconnected from my channel. The whole 9 yards. It was terrible. But I'm back now, and I'm happy to be back. I appreciate you all. Again, StouttFitness.com. If you, with 2 T's, not one, STOUTT, StouttFitness.com or StouttFitness@gmail.com. Hit me up on email. All right. I appreciate you all. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. Have a nice day. Be the best you. Class is Stoutt.